Roll call, Mr. David Acey, Casey Bryant,
Right here.
June Jordan,
Here.
Ron Gillum,
Present.
Floridia Jackson,
Here.
Bruce Kramer,
Here.
John Merritt, Worth Morgan, Sandeep
Present.
Pedricker, Alfredo Pina, Felisa Shaw, and Ralph White Chairman. Again, good evening to you all. We're gonna have, this is a good day for you because a few things need to be done. We've got some corrections that we have to make in our minutes. Ms. Wilson just brought to my attention. She's gonna make those corrections and we'll, go through those in our next month's meeting. Yeah, person who does a transcription made some mistakes there, and we don't want to go through those in this particular meeting, but she'll have those ready for us in our next meeting. So that means that it leaves more time for special person who's come to share with us on this evening. And we're gonna have a greeting from Mr. Alan Crone, special counsel to the mayor and his executive division. Mr. Crone, you want to come at this time?
Sure. Where would you like for me to
You
go?
have my seat. No.
No. For a lot of reasons, that's a bad idea, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to come for a couple of reasons. First of all, on behalf of Mayor Strickland, to thank all of the board members for your service to the city. It's important what you do. Oftentimes in city service, we don't say often enough how important what people do for the city is, and this is a tremendous service that you're providing. As the chairman knows, and many of you may know, on the organizational chart of the city, Ms. Wilson and Mr. Robinson report to me in the mayor's office, and from the very beginning of that relationship, I have, first of all, you guys have got great staff. Ms. Wilson has been with the city a number of years and knows her way around City Hall better than a lot of people, knows how to be an administrator, and she's doing in my opinion, she's doing a great job for you, and she deserves a big round of applause. And Arthur Robinson, your investigator, I think does a tremendous job. He's had to invent that job. There was no investigator before him, and the ordinance, as you know, is silent as to exactly what his duties should be, but he's shown a lot of initiative and done a lot of work that maybe is outside that scope, above and beyond, and he puts in a lot of hours and goes around the city promoting the board, and he deserves a round of applause for that too. And of course, you've got a long-serving veteran chairman who's doing a great job, and we appreciate your service. But in terms of the administration, we want to support what you're doing, but we don't want to usurp what you're doing. It's very, very important that this board is seen as a neutral arbiter of the truth. Because if it looks like you're an organ of the administration, or you're an organ of anti-police sentiment, or some other agenda, then I think it hurts you as members, and I think it hurts the board's effectiveness. Because at some point in the future, God forbid, that something happens and there's an incident where we need to get to the truth of what happened. A citizen says, I've been hurt tremendously, maybe my loved one was killed, God forbid, and the police officer says, I did what I was supposed to do. Your work could be the difference between a reasonable, productive resolution and something very, very different. And that's not going to be the case if your credibility is not seen as being that independent arbiter of truth. And so, to that end, you say, well, why does that matter to you and the staff? I have instructed them. They've come to me a number of times with what I would call a policy question. what should we do, you know, in this circumstance? What should we do in that circumstance? And if it's a matter of the website or some other things that are purely administrative, then I'll give my advice and counsel on that. But if it's a policy matter, it's my policy to say, well, you need to, Ms. Wilson, you need to talk to the chairman about that, or you need to bring that up to the board. Mr. Robinson and I had a conversation, I guess about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He had gone to Atlanta, and that was one of the self-directed things that he did. He said, you know, why don't I go and see what they do? And I thought that was a great idea, and he went down and spent 2 or 3 days down there and came back with a lot of information. And he said, you know, one of the things that they do is when there's a complaint that comes through and their version, whoever their version of the police director has already made a decision that has resulted in discipline, well, their board doesn't hear it. What should our board do? And I said, well, that's a decision that this board has to make. So I would encourage you as a board to try to develop as many policies, written policies, and procedures as you can, and direction for your staff as you can, so that they have direction, they know what is expected of them. More importantly, they know what the board expects of them, the chairman and the board expects of them. And just also rest assured that when those questions come up, that's the first club out of my bag, so to speak, is to redirect them back to you. And it's not a matter of trying to pass the buck, but it's trying to keep in my lane and let you guys be in your lane, because you really need to be directing the policy of how this all works. And sometimes you don't, it's not very clear or intuitive when you start something like this. This is, the way you're conducting business now is relatively new under the new ordinance that was passed under one of the greatest councils in history in 2015, which I was on. But seriously, that ordinance gives a lot of detail, but it doesn't give detail, for example, on how to process a claim. When it comes in, and as I said, Mr. Robinson and Ms. Wilson have done, and Reverend White have done a great job in forging that. But I would just encourage you maybe to form a subcommittee or just talk about how you might be able to get even more organized than you are, to give direction to them, because it not only benefits them, but it also benefits the folks coming to the board with complaints, so that there's a predictable outcome, at least a predictable method. And we've had a backlog that you guys have taken up, and you're plowing through it, and that's great. We're continuing to get cases on a regular basis, and we'll process those and help you process them. But again, I want to thank you for what you're doing, and just as you move forward in this endeavor, try to keep that in mind of what you do reverberates throughout this community, and that can be a very positive thing. But if it's the wrong reverberation, that can reflect poorly on you and the board, and it could have unintended consequences. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up. We had already talked about just that, to keep the board separated from City Hall, where it's our intention to take some of our meetings to community centers and throughout the city, so that people won't be intimidated by coming downtown, etc. So, we'll make sure that you're aware of where we're going and what's happening. And we do have some qualified attorneys here, and we're going to put them together to have them to structure our direction. Before we go further with it, we're going to make sure that you get an opportunity to look at it. But we just appreciate your presence here with us today.
I think one thing that, building on that I probably ought to say is, right now, the administrative offices are in the main library, and I think that's working fairly well. Other than the offices are not, we're sharing them with, I think, HR, the library's HR, and which in some ways makes some sense. We have resisted the temptation to move them into the new state office building, because that's where the police headquarters is. And there are two considerations that sometimes conflict with one another. One is we want to have some place that's accessible and non-threatening so that citizens feel comfortable coming to the office to make their complaint if that's what they want to do. But also some place that's secure for the file materials, but also secure for the staff and the people meeting with us. So we're still searching for that perfect location. We haven't found it yet, but I wanted the board to know, in case there were any questions about that we are looking for a more permanent home than the one they have now. But I think what we have now is working, and I don't think it's a detriment. It could just be a little bit better.
Okay.
Right, but I look forward to you going on the road. I think that would be, I think that making it accessible like that is a great idea.
And appreciate you.
Sure.
Thank you. We want to thank, we actually represented here from the Department of Justice. For you guys here, there they are right there. Just stand up and introduce yourselves.
I stand up on behalf of the department. My name is Keenan James. I'm the supervisory specialist in the Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service. We appreciate the opportunity to be here and be involved in the great things that are going on in the city of Memphis. Thank you very much. I have two other members of my team, Diane Reagan and Michael Durden there as well. We're just here to observe, so we appreciate the opportunity here.
We appreciate you all coming, and we had a very good conversation. That's why we were a little bit late coming here. But I want to move on to, we're going to go ahead and move into our old business, and with that, we're having an update on the hearings from the ISB cases that have been filed. This is the Keisha Birdstone. Let me say, as far as Birdstone is here, we had 3 other cases that we were to bring today, and each one of those individuals had something that happened, and they were not able to come. So we had a case that we were going to go through today, and Mr. Robinson informed us right before he coming up that she had a 16-hour day and she couldn't make it. Poor thing. I had a 20-hour day and I'm still here, but we understand things happen. But I'm glad to see we did have a quorum, so it's not the fault of the board. So with that being said, we're gonna do a few things because we've got some individuals here who are here on a regular basis, and people come, and they may want to throw some things at us, okay? I don't mean literally, but I mean you may have some things you'd like to say, have us address, and we're going to take time. But right now we're going to get we're going to move down to first have an update on the members who we visited, the letter to Director Rollins. And I believe all of them are here, or 2 of them are here. So would you kind of, Bruce, just tell us where you are with those letters? When we talk, the letters we're dealing with are the ones we forwarded to Director Rollins, and he declined to move upon them, especially when the board decided that there was reason to hold police officers accountable for their conduct. So we resubmitted those letters, and hopefully this time the director would look at them from a different standpoint. So you want to just kind of give us a brief overview of what you did?
Sure. And so, as the chairman said, the director had asked for us to give a little more detail into the reasoning and the analysis that we went through to come to our decision. So this is really kind of requesting a second chance to present our decisions to the director. The letter that I included is a pretty rough draft, and it looks like Mr. Kramer did a more formatted one, but you can feel free to read through it. I looked at the minutes for the board meeting in March, where we made the final decision about Miss Claudette Taylor and her case. And so I kind of tried to just go through and memorialize the reasoning that the board members articulated during that meeting and what I remembered from the meeting before. and kind of explain how we saw the situation, and then why we made the decision. I'm happy to make changes or take comments. You don't have to do it out loud. You could just write it on the paper and I'll change whatever you want, or you can talk to me afterwards. It's something I just whipped up pretty fast so I can add more detail or take out anything you feel uncomfortable with. But I think we did these really just to make sure that we're underscoring our decision with rationale.
Okay.
Well, I did the same thing for Mr. Johnson. If you all remember, Ms. Bryant made a motion at one of the meetings last week, the one before, that we needed to do this. And so I likewise went back and looked at the transcript and reread what our initial letter was of April 11th, and Director Rollins' response. And I drafted what I think is, I called an addendum to our report, which gives a couple of the salient facts that the board considered and discussed. And there's a new there's a new recommendation after I went through all that, which was that if you all recall, this was the case that Mr. Johnson, a neighbor of his, came to his front door who had been shot. Mr. Johnson knew him. He called 911, and they in turn dispatched the police officers and a paramedic. And when the police arrived, they kind of bypassed the shooting victim and went up to the threshold of Mr. Johnson's house. Whether they knew it or not, Mr. Johnson had a video recording system for his house and recorded everything what took place outside. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he doesn't have one inside and no audio. But it was clear from what the video showed, and that the version given by the police officers was at odds with the video and in keeping with the testimony of Mr. Johnson and his wife. And it was interesting, and we noted during the discussion that the Internal Affairs Bureau file did not mention any video, so we were not sure whether they had actually seen it or not. And I think Mr. Robinson went back and checked with them and made sure that they had a video or a copy of the video, and they do. And whether they had it then or now, they haven't changed it. And so the additional, if you all also recall, Mr. Johnson testified that a couple of years ago, one of his sons was murdered, and he was not happy with the investigation that the police department was doing, and he criticized the police department about that, and he was concerned that the police were acting the way they did, basically in retaliation for his criticism. And so one of the other recommendations that I put in the draft, which I want the board to consider, and if they adopt it, then we will do it, is that the police department in their policies have an explicit policy, which I think we should also start adopting policies. I think it's a good point that Mr. Crone made, but that the police have a written policy in their procedures manual that there's no retaliation to citizens who make complaints or criticize the police department. And so that's the additional recommendation that I am presenting to the board for their consideration. And of course, as with Ms. Bryant, if there's any changes or additions or deletions that you want to this draft letter, just let us know. And I still have it on Word, so I can change those. I did see one in here with Mr. Merrick is also.
Oh, this one in the back.
It should be
It's number 4.
I have a question about the letterhead. Should it be on the?
Oh, no, this is just, I sent to them.
Okay.
And then my email to them is that, it would be on our letterhead for Reverend White to sign.
And all
Obviously,
these
it's
will be-
it's signed by Reverend, to be signed by Reverend White.
Right.
That's, he's not a member of our firm yet.
And all these will be formatted the same.
The same
And,
way.
and Mr. Chair, if I may, these letters were compiled by these three individual board members for the entire board to review. After you review those, if there are some recommendations regarding those letters, then you submit the recommendation. And then there will, I will certainly speak with our legal liaison, Ms. Granberg, and then we will compile the letters as we did for the previous letters that we sent to Director Rollins. First, they went to Reverend White. After the board approves the letters first, they go to Reverend White for his signature, and then they are sent to Director Rollins. But these are just your drafts of those letters for your review, and if you have any questions or comments, or if there's some revisions that need to be made, then we will.
Yeah, and with respect to Mr. Merrick's redraft of the one that involved Mr. Bolden, I saw it earlier today, and I responded in an email that I thought he should add some additional facts that, even though the police officers were on the scene, and Mr. Bolden had his personal car there, which was a late model BMW, they never called in the VIN to the dispatch to see if it was registered to him, and they never checked with the dispatcher for the trucking company that he worked for. So he said, I work right here, and I just put my truck in there. And, they didn't do that. And, any investigation, in keeping with their policies and procedures, would require that, common sense would do that before they decide to arrest somebody. And, was he legitimately on the premises at that time? Because he told them, I'm blocking up, the gate.
Actually had keys.
So I thought we should add, just the board absolutely talked about those items. And so Mr. Merrick, was unfortunately out of town, attended to some other business in Arkansas, and he couldn't be here. But I sent him that email. I think I copied Reverend White and Ms. Wilson. I copied you on that too?
Yes, sir.
I did. Oh, good.
Everybody here has a copy of these letters in their folders.
But I don't think you all have the additional email.
John, Attorney Merritt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I had.
did you?
No, actually what you have in your folders that I've created for you is the last letter that Attorney Merrick sent me now. The additional language that Attorney Kramer mentioned, I did see it, but Attorney Merrick did not have an opportunity to incorporate that in his letter, because he did email me and tell me that he was getting ready to head out of town, and this was something that he was trying to get to us, so we would have something to review today. So I'm certain that when he returns, he will incorporate the additional language that Attorney Kramer is mentioning in that letter. So you have the first draft that he compiled for us.
Okay, and for those who not been a part of this is really, we're adding something to the initial complaints that we forwarded to the director a couple of months ago. And all of these are going to be forwarded to the board, and once, if there are any corrections, which I think these are very well done, we'll just put it together, put it on our particular letterhead, and forward them again to the director. And I think that's where we are. Mr. Merritt's got a good report also. And so we're going to be doing that to wrap up on our old business. Any additional, before we move along in this, any additional, yes, ma'am?
I just would like to say that actually going forward, we should make it a point to do letters such as this, so we don't have to do them again.
Absolutely.
And we're going to assign you and that committee. So that'll be
letter
great.
writing committee.
There you go. We will have a committee come together to put a lot of these things together so that once we come here, there'll be some formalities, something for us to go by. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, that being said, we're gonna jump down to new business because I believe some of our participants are gonna have to leave. But our first case, hearing of our case from number 12016, that's the case where the individual called in and she'll not be present here on this afternoon. So we're going to table that and hopefully she'll be one of the cases that we will hear in our next board meeting. We have a website update, and they're here now from the Neely Agency. So we're going to bring them on at this time and give you an opportunity to bring us up as to where we are with the website.
So quick update on the website. I guess I won't do the visuals. But did everybody get the link? Have we sent it out yet? Okay. Well, you will eventually.
If you have
Yeah.
any,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, let's see it.
I think the board wants to see,
Oh,
it.
okay.
Since we're not hearing a case
Okay.
today, but we do have some more time.
Okay, she's responsible for communications for CLERB, with our designs, et cetera.
Well, our letterhead.
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 Letterhead. So we appreciate you for making us look important. Thanks a lot.
Madam Chairman, Paul Garner has been out, and, he's our, holds us accountable. Well, we're glad to have him back in our presence. He
Okay.
faced some challenges, and so glad you're here, Paul.
Sir.
Thank you for all your work.
You can say something, I'm a preacher, we go long. You like to say good evening or something? Paul? Yes, good to see you.
Keep on fighting a good fight, y'all.
Appreciate it.
And he is here every single
Oh,
time.
yeah, he's a good guy, good guy. That's great.
Either rain, fire, or anything keeps you free.
Okay, the Neely Group, you all like to have something to say while they're, have commercials or something while they're making this ready?
I think it's probably best if we show it to you guys.
Do it all.
Yeah, and then
Great.
you'll be able to understand.
Why would you own home?
Got some other regular attendees, if they're in you, want to say good evening or something, this is your time. 15 seconds of fame. Anybody? We appreciate all of you coming. Unfortunately, we can't determine how it's going to turn out. We had 3 cases previously that we were going to hear today. And I think Friday, we found out they weren't coming, so we put another case in and wanted to make sure, so all of us have gone through it, and here we are. But I tell people at my church, life happens. Things happen that you have no control over. You just have to roll the punches. But again, I'm thankful for the board and the commitment that I've seen in these last meetings, that being here, because this is very important to me as to what happens in the city and to the citizens of the city. Let me read this too, because this is in every one of our packets, and it says for the board so that we can stay focused. This is just a reminder that all board members, that CLERB is supposed to be impartial, with no biases in favor or against the police or any individual claimant, and that the board should refrain from determining or communicating how it believes a case should be decided until all the evidence is heard. And with that in mind, please be aware of any comments that you make to any person or that you post on social media with regard to CLERB cases, the Memphis Police Department, or any complainant, especially in this particular political climate. We don't want to give anyone the perception that CLERB is biased one way or the other. So we have to make sure we remain focused. And sometimes we want to, but we got to weigh all of the evidence. And I think we've got a very level-headed group here, good people, and I think you do the city well in your service. So I appreciate it.
Mr.
You
Chairman,
ready?
can I ask you a question, sir?
Okay,
Before you,
are you ready?
Yeah.
They're ready, and after that, we'll give you just a moment.
Okay, so just a quick update on the website. I think most of you all were here last time. But we're progressing right along with the website. So the only things that we have left to do is we're gonna take some more photography, incorporate more photography into the website. Other things we did where we had sort of we went through it, the copywriting on it, to make sure it kind of cleaned up a lot of the text, to make sure it's a little more reader friendly for lay people when they look at the site. We have, for instance, like a process page that kind of clearly outlines the process of CLERB, or the process that a civilian would go through when they're going through the entire process. So including, like we mentioned last time, step one would be go to the ISB is the first step, right? And it takes you all the way through. File a complaint page. We have some brief instructions and then a form to file a complaint. So here are the instructions over here, as well as the complaint form on the left. So it's a questionnaire. So again, a lot of these things that we incorporated here, we use best practices from a lot of other websites. We've seen a lot of other major cities in the United States who have review board websites. And we looked at what they did, including Atlanta. Looked at what they did, and we incorporated some of the best practices. So complaints reviewed, we talked about this briefly the other day. So we're still trying to decide whether or not we want to go this route or not. So there are some implications for showing the cases and the statuses of previous cases. So we're trying to decide whether or not we want to go that route or not. So meeting minutes, we plan to post meeting minutes, but we're not a big operation, so how we get those meeting minutes on the website may require a little bit of creativity and some volunteers or something. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. We also have the FAQs page. Again, frequently asked questions. Again, all this is geared for civilians, right? This website is for civilians and citizens of Memphis. So when they come here, the point is for them to get as much information as possible, so they know exactly what their steps are, and they know whether or not actually they should even go through CLERB or not. And also, a contact page, contact information in case people need to contact a person, right? So, any questions so far? Oh, it's right. We also have an about page and a board members page where you guys can see all your pretty faces here. So.
That's the best page.
That's the best page. So.
Can you go to the about?
Sure. So here's the about page. So the about page just has some verbiage that's pretty much taken straight out of the ordinance, right? That talks about CLERB.
So does this civilian law review board handle complaints against sheriff officers too?
Anybody want to answer quick
No.
question?
No, no,
Okay.
Oh, city police.
MPD on.
There's supposedly a second floor that does that.
Let me ask you, is that Memphis?
Yeah, you might wanna put that on there.
Yes, in the background?
Yeah.
It is, but it's actually an outdated picture. It's just a placeholder.
We're,
until we
yeah,
get a better picture.
we're gonna get some more pictures, we're gonna update the website with better pictures.
When will it actually be ready? Can we go?
We're shooting for August 1st, I think is the day we're shooting for. So we have everything we need on our end to actually launch the website. We had that meeting just yesterday. So we're completely ready to launch the website. All we're waiting for is maybe some updated photography and maybe like another glance over or something like that, and then we'll be pretty ready to go.
And how are you gonna, you said you were still trying to figure out if you should list the complaints and whether they were sustained or not sustained. Who's gonna help you make that decision?
Any feedback on that?
They could be something for y'all to decide whether that's something you would like to include, on the site or not. So, I mean, I would leave this in this body to determine.
Yeah. Just, weigh the pros and cons.
Can you click on the complaints review?
You have a link, you sent that to us in a link so we can look at it, right?
Has it been sent out yet?
We have not. We're trying to make some corrections. There was a major correction that need to be made. We want to do as many of those possible before we send them out. So you have,
But Colin, I think this is ready for them to review right now, because everything else is cosmetic as far as the changes.
Yeah.
So I think that if you send that to them now, so they can review, give feedback, and then we can, make those changes based on their feedback. Because I want them to have the opportunity to review this as well.
Absolutely. And I
Access,
think actually seeing it will help in terms of any revisions or any communication that you might have regarding that. So,
Or anything you think you need to add, if you think there's something that we're missing, please share that as well.
access can be a marginalizing factor. Is this the only way to file a report?
no.
Sure, phone
No.
So
call.
you can go and,
There's file a report with CLERB. No, I mean, this is just another tool, but you can make a phone call, you can come to the office. So no, that's not the only way to get it.
We
Maybe
gotta make
those-
sure that's on there.
Yeah, maybe
yeah,
those
but there are other
numbers.
options, other ways,
Yeah, they
because
should be
access can be
included.
the thing that prevents,
Not everybody has,
not everybody has it.
And when we look at each month, we can list those particular cases that have been heard and the ones that have been received and rejected. So there's something they can work with you.
You guys, what information you want.
Is there anything else you all think should be added?
The ones that are sustained should include, since it's public record, the people who were sustained in it. Or the findings, maybe to a PDF for transparency purposes.
Again, we'll leave that up. This can contain any information you want it to, as long as we have the information and you guys agree that we should post it for public use on the website.
Because people can file a public records request if we.
Yeah, but in the past, when I filed one with the city, they've told me that I had to either pay for it or it would be 7 days, then it went to a city attorney, it just went back and forth. If it's public,
That's the process.
yeah, but if it's public record and this is a civilian review board, anybody in the public should be able to access that
But then
information.
what if I'm a civilian and I don't want my information posted on the, in a
I'm
public
talking about
face?
against the person, you can redact it.
That's true, you can redact it.
But when we worked on the ordinance, one of the whole purposes of the website was so that you didn't have to go through that process, because Joe Public might not have access to being able to paying for those copies and all that stuff. So but this looks really good.
And when you, court records,
Copies of letters.
unless it's been sealed, anyone can get them, that's the law.
That's
So
freedom of information.
if you're gonna go to they take this time to develop a website, any information that you have, I should have as a civilian. It's called transparency.
Another option is to have a simple method to request information. If we don't want all information publicly displayed, including names of
You can
people who may not
redact that.
want that.
You can I'm talking about the officer who, I'm not talking about the complainant.
Okay.
I'm talking about the complained about and the board sustained the complaint, that information should be readily and available to the public, because there may be other people that have the same issue, and that's the purpose of the board, which is to look into those bad apples.
Okay. Yes, John, I was trying to read it quickly as you read through that. I thought you called us the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board. They changed our name to Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board.
If you saw citizen, we should correct it. I know we went through and changed a lot to civilian. If you saw citizen,
I don't know.
we change it.
Yes,
I think that
It was on
kind
that
of the same thing, unless it's a military stand.
Still might be,
Those are the corrections we're trying to make before we send it out.
Yeah.
So basically had Sam down as a board member, and had some former board members still up.
And that's fine, if you guys find something, just let us know. It's not live yet, so we're.
So, yeah, that's what, I mean, if we get the link, and this so we can review and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Sounds
other
great.
questions or comments?
You guys have impressed us every time, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we appreciate it, so we should be up and running by August 1st.
That's the plan, so
Maybe
hopefully
so.
we'll get that link sent out and we'll get feedback in before August 1st. And if we do, we can incorporate it. So,
Okay, sounds great, we're looking forward to it,
yeah.
and you'll be forwarding us, each one of us,
And
send it to Ms. Wilson.
the URL will be clerbmemphis.org.
Okay.
No, I think a civilian had a question as to if you're gonna make that information available, or do we still have to go through the lengthy process of dealing with the city attorney to get public information?
What was
Any
that?
other question?
What was that?
I'm trying to see, is the information gonna be added to the website? I
What
never read a
information?
definitive or negative answer to that question that she was at.
What information are we
So
referring
they're asking like, is more information like, are the letters going to be on the web, like that y'all send out? I think those are supposed to be made publicly available from what I heard from the ordinance, and like what y'all's findings are. Like, it would be a little more detailed than that. It would be something like that. It would be more, like there would be a little more detailed information about the
We
complaint.
will review the ordinance and this body will make that decision.
Okay.
We'll make that decision on it. We'll look
In
at
terms
it.
of what we can and can't, even with the
Before August
cases,
1st.
because we have to operate within the guidelines of what's legal and ethical, and so we have a legal liaison that we will speak to and just make certain that we want everybody to have as much information as possible. We want to also make certain that we're following the proper guidelines with any information that's posted on the website. So
Well, I just, to refer you, example, when you file a complaint against a judge, and that information is sustained, the Tennessee Court of Administration makes the full complaint, if it's sustained, available by a click of a button. So if you want to see exactly what I'm referencing, you can have your legal counsel go to the Court of Administration, which is in Nashville, and then you can see what I'm talking about.
sure. And that may very well be the case here. We just want to make certain that we're operating in the proper vein here with the information that we are putting on the website.
We can always add to what we've got. What we want to make sure we had a website. And we've got that, there'll probably be additions to what we have, but we want to make sure that, we have at least a website. And then some of those things we'll take under advisement. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. She had a question.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I just, looking at the screen here, I'm just curious, what is it that somebody could search for under that search drop down or that search, what is it that they could search for?
Right now, any information that's posted in this table. So if we add, I don't know if you can see it, but it says ISB case number, hearing date, and disposition status. So again, this table here, we can add as much or as little information as the board chooses. And when that information is added and when more cases get piled in here over the months and years, then sometimes people may want to search for a specific case number or search for different statuses or search for a date, and they'll be able to do that through the search bar.
Well, as a member of the public, I probably would not know the hearing date, the case number, or any of that. I mean, I might only know a person's name, be it an officer or be it the public. And so that would be the way that this could be most useful to me. This is still very opaque.
And Barbara, to your point, this is all still being worked on.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to send the link out to other people and do all that. This is all a work in progress.
Right, and I'm suggesting that there might be another way or another category or some way for someone to find out information they'd like to about a case, because GQ public probably won't know most of that.
Yeah, and that question just goes back to how much information we show, how much we don't show. So whatever we show is searchable, whatever we don't show, of course, is not searchable.
Let me say this to them, so we can move on. We got one more. Much of what we've heard in clerk's offices, et cetera, we've got a staff of people who take up all those different, because we got one person. What we're doing, we built the house, and we're going to add rooms as we go, and she'll do that. We take on advisement, all those things that you guys suggested, and hopefully, as a finished product, we'll be able to include all of that. But right now, we could barely build this house. As we go along, we're going to put some more furniture in the room, and everybody's going to be comfortable at the end of the day. Okay? But we appreciate that, and Ms. Wilson's taking this down, and as we move forward, we're going to really do that so that we can make it easier, because some of the things up there, I'm going to have to call some of y'all and say, what we doing? Because, I understand many of us are not savvy, and when you get into the searches, et cetera, we have to make it as easy as possible for individuals to come in and know what we're doing. So we're really going to try to do that. Yes, forgive me.
I just want to make sure that, we're shooting for an August 1st go live date, but just want to make sure, because we have so many representatives of the community here today, that even after we go live, this is still a work in progress, correct?
Yeah. But,
how long has this board been in existence?
quite a while. That's a history. The board's been in existence since, I think it's what, 90 what? 1994. But not as it is now. They never had a website. What we're doing is something totally new. And what we're doing that's new is allowing you all to speak. Okay? This meeting is for the board. But I'm a good guy. I want to hear what you're saying, because you're the ones we're representing. So we're taking all of that. Okay? So now next meeting, we may not see your hand. So, no, but we appreciate y'all coming. That's why we opened this. We didn't have the cases, but you're here, so we let you be a part of the process. Okay, we do appreciate it. We're taking it down. We got one more, and we're gonna let y'all go home early. Yes, sir.
And Ms. White, all you want to know, regular Johnson, my question is, even though I may not be here to get clarified my situation with CLERB, for me calling 911. Okay, my situation is this. I haven't heard this brought up, Mr. Kramer brought it up. If my case, you all haven't heard, in my case, I'm being to the point where being retaliated against, because every time any kind of police officer be called in my house, 5 or 6 cars come to my house. And I asked the question, why? They said because of what happened on last year. I did nothing to deserve this. And if CLERB don't do anything for me, only thing that I want is to be able to live my life and be able to be a citizen like I've been for the last 40-something, 50-something years. I don't need to have to call the police, and then 6, 7 cars of police come to my house because somebody called me for a traffic violation. So I think you all need to know this. Somebody needs to tell Director Rollins to please release my house. They got my house under what they call a hazard list. And I've done nothing to deserve this. So I think somebody needs to help me. I'm talking about, because I'm not getting no kind of job. My daughter called the police February the 20th about her car being hit. 6 cars of police came to my house. And I called the precinct and asked them why. They told me, Mike Sheridan told me that the police officer told him that I said that I was going to kill his wife and child. And so I ain't said nothing like this, and I just only went to jail to do what they asked them for me to do. So Chairman, somebody got to help me, because I need to live my life, and I don't have to I don't call the police for anything because I'm afraid. So no one, I need to ask this question, because somebody help me get this off my home.
Did you say you called the director? You never?
I talked to the director, he came to I had a function, June the 10th, where I have a thing, Stop the Violence. He came out, I spoke with him, and I spoke with him at Broad Avenue. He said, shoot me an email, I did that. And he told me, so I talked to D.D. Riles. I talked to Director Riles, and Mr. Riles told me, he said, well, Mr. Johnson, you know, this is not only for your good, it's for the good of the officer. For the good of the officer. And I don't understand, I've done nothing wrong, so, you know, what good is it for the officer in terms of it's not for your safety, but the safety of the officer? I've done nothing to deserve this. And so, I don't know if y'all have heard about this, but this me, I want to live. And this is really tearing me up. I'm talking about, you know, I come down here and I hear this, and, you know, I don't think y'all ever heard this, but this has gotten to the point now where I don't want to call the police for anything, because I'm afraid if I call them, they may be enraged and do something to me. But, Chairman, I think somebody needs to get in touch with Director Riles and Rollins and let them know I don't deserve to live like this. Thank you for hearing me.
Co-chair, do you think we can put together a letter, I can sign it directly to Director Rollins on this case, even though this is not, it's not a CLERB issue. Well, I don't think it's going through that process, but I think we could reach out to him, even though he's talked to him. He needs to know that, you know, we're interested in it, and maybe.
I think we can just add, I can add another sentence on my recommendation, you know, since we've already heard from Mr. Johnson under oath, and what he told us now is consistent with, you know, what he said then. And just ask him that, you know, that in addition, we'd like him to, you know, part of our recommendation is that, you know, they take him off whatever list he's on, that his house is on. So that, you know, if he calls, he's afraid to call the police for any help because, you know, they're afraid of him. And I don't know if he's gonna do anything about that, if they're, you know, whether or not they're legitimately afraid, it's perception again. You know, so, you know, I'll work something up and, you know, we'll circulate it to everybody.
I think that's reasonable.
What you think?
I mean, I'm good. I mean, Mr. Johnson has had FaceTime with the director, but he's asking us to follow up, you know, his FaceTime, you know, with requests. You know, his house has been identified as a hazardous location, but, you know, for some reason, it may be unbeknownst to us at this particular point. But, you know, that's usually what they do when, you know.
But that's what I'm saying, if we can get a response,
right,
we can kind of address it better because, you know, we don't know, and talking to him, maybe we can get a response in the session, whereas we're going to have training, maybe at that time we can address that and maybe some.
Well, maybe, I don't know what their policy is on how they designate, you know, a certain location, a hazardous location.
I think threats been made against the officer, which he indicated that there is a report, whether there's any validity to it or not.
The officers told, I didn't even know until someone brought it to my attention, showed me the report. The officer that had me in the car, he took me behind the street, and they told, had it in the report, that I had it in the report, that I said that I was gonna kill his wife and child. I knew nothing about this officer's wife, knew nothing about his child, never said anything like that. The only thing that I did was just went to jail just like they took me. And I never said anything like that. And so that's the hurting part about it, is for me to be lied upon. And I asked Mike Sherry, that one of the deputy directors now, I asked him why was this placed on my home. He said, Officer Giannini said that you said you was gonna kill his wife and child. I said, what? And that's the reason why they got my house like this. He said, but it's still under investigation, Mr. Johnson. It's just for your safety as well as the safety of the officer. And I don't have to live like this. And I wish somebody would help me. I'm talking about because I am afraid, I tell my kids, don't go out the house and they stop you and do what you're supposed to do. But this is a board. And I haven't heard this brought up downtown since I've been here because you all didn't know this. And I have brought this to Mr. Robinson's attention to Chairman. I called Chairman White on the side and told him about it. And the only thing that I'm asking this board to do is please, somebody help me.
I I didn't want to give the impression that we're not sympathetic to your concern. I was just making, mention of the fact that you've had FaceTime with the police director.
Yes, sir.
On 2 occasions. And you've asked him, can you get your officers to back off? I don't feel like I should have 6 cars coming to my house when I'm just trying to file a theft report. And that was the only point that I was making.
Now I understand.
But if we can be a conduit to, to get your house or your location removed from quote-unquote hazardous location, then by all means, I'm willing to support that. But to get FaceTime with the police director, something that you had on 2 occasions, I think that's powerful within itself.
It came to my event.
Right.
It came to my event. I talked to them. It's just like you all have the power. My word is just my word. But your all is a board. Y'all have the power. Somebody can say something. I'm talking about even if he don't sustain my case, even if my case be just well, we're going to rule in the favor of the officer. I accept that. Whichever was wrong, I accept that. The only thing I'm asking is just my house to be removed so I can live my life. That's all I'm asking.
But I understand is the board may have the power to make the request, but we don't have the power, to change whatever policy that they have regarding hazardous location.
Point I'm making, we don't know what their policy is. How do they designate, that
It's kind of like a list that was right here.
a location is a hazardous,
watch list.
I don't know if you may remember, some of us remember Shannon Street, and I'm sure that was designated as a hazardous. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it should have been, but maybe it wasn't before those 2 officers went there.
And 2, I was one ask you to talk to. Remember I told you to call the director and tell him that I told you to call?
I did.
Did I not do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we've got 4 cases now as a board that we're sending back to the director. So just because we're the board does not mean he's going to agree with what we say.
Yes, sir.
But I should tell him that I told you to give him a call and tell him what the situation was. So, there are certain limits that we can go to.
Yes, sir.
And I'll try, so I'm not going to just leave this. I'll see if I can give him a call and maybe mention it. But I told you what to do.
And I did.
You did that.
Yes, sir.
And so that's as much as I could have done.
Yes, sir.
But I will, go further. Like we're submitting letters now to whether that director told us we don't agree with what this board says, but all these attorneys, with all these smart people, I'm the smartest. And I tell you I'm not gonna do it. So you see, that's what we are.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're fighting for the people, because we've got people in places who should listen to the people, but based on their own opinions, they said, forget about this board, this is the way I think it ought to be. That's why we're submitting these letters again to the director to say, no, we disagree with you. And so yours is not the only one. We're fighting for all these issues. And I will personally, and we'll try to include that in our letter, say he needs to relook some of these things. And so that's where we are. That's why CLERB was called into existence, to do that. And I can sympathize with you. As was said, we don't know all the underlying, reasoning, but even at that, you've talked to him, some of that should have stopped. So sometimes police have their own little vendetta. So we don't know. But the director should be looking into that if you've actually given him names.
Yes, sir.
So I'll mention it to him and, see what goes from there. But I think he's going to be very upset with us as a board when he gets all these other letters that we said we don't agree with you. Okay?
Yeah, I've just very quickly drafted an additional sentence or 2 with respect to Mr. Johnson's rewrite of the matters, and would just say, that you also provide the policy of the Memphis Police Department that sets forth the criteria for determining a location as a quote hazardous location. If there is no policy, we recommend the adoption of same.
Oh, that sounds like a good solution to a problem.
Okay.
Well, does that at all address specifically Mr. Johnson's issue with his own
It's in this letter dealing with Mr. Johnson, and the previous one says we'd also recommend that the MPD adopt a strict policy prohibiting any retaliation whatsoever against citizens who file complaints with the ISB or otherwise criticize the MPD, which is what he did.
Should we directly say that we believe that they're retaliating against him?
I wouldn't want to do that until we had, our, Mary can tell us, but I think our ordinance says we can only deal with what's presented to us on the IAB complaint.
Yeah, we do have some limitations, but we can get as close to that edge as we possibly can.
Johnson wanted to, hire an attorney to file a, complaint to seek an injunction against them,
So not just as a board, but as citizens, we hear you, Mr. Johnson, we're so sorry to hear this.
Okay. Again, we appreciate it, like I said, this was kind of out of the norm, audience participation. Nobody's supposed to be at the table but board members, and we allowed for all of that. I'm a good guy today. No, I'm just kidding. But it's been good. This is the way I think meetings should be handled if they're community meetings. But based upon how it's set up, next month will be a little bit different. But we do take, we're concerned about you and what you're going through, and we want to fix that. I think this letter will help there. With that being said, before we do let you go home, Brother Bruce has, yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, I wish Mr. Crone was still here or his liaison. My term expires 31st day of this month. I've asked to be reappointed, but given what Mr. Crone had asked me to resign, some months ago, I doubt that I'm going to get reappointed. So I'd just like to thank everybody. I've enjoyed being on this board.
Well, I'll write a letter for you if you need me to, because I like you.
that and $1.95 gets you a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
You'll be here. You'll be here. Good guy. I think we got a good board, and this is what I've been looking for, and then a listening ear. So you'll be here in that seat next one. Any other from the board? Any other comments or observations?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder to the board members, hopefully you have it on tab 8, that we do have a date for the training that we talked about at our June board meeting. Director Rollins and his staff has agreed to the training. You have a schedule, hopefully you have a schedule, it should be tab 8 in your binders for that training. It will start at 9 o'clock, and this is a Saturday, and go into the evenings. Hopefully, I did reach out to all of the board members. Most of you have already consented to attend that Saturday meeting, so I hope that nothing changed. There is one person who's already indicated that he cannot attend because he's traveling. So I'm working with Director Rollins and staff to see if there are some alternatives for that board member for this particular training. But we do hope that everybody will keep their schedule and their calendars clear so that you can attend the training. And the one last thing before we go, I hope that the binders was somewhat helpful. I worked tirelessly on these binders.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
So, if they are, if you will leave them for me, you can have all of the contents without the tabs.
You can leave those tabs here.
Leave the tabs and the binders, and then what we will do going forward, I will put all of the information in the binder for you. I should have brought, but I thank you all.